Question: what is creativity? Answer: the relationship between a human being and the mysteries of inspiration.
Welcome to the Transformation Cafe with your host, Robin Misevich. Transformation Cafe, a weekly half hour of light, topical conversation about health, wellness, happiness, personal growth, spirituality, and other insights. We're glad you're here. Transformation Cafe, a fun place to nourish your soul. Now, let's get started and introduce our diners for tonight's show.
Hi everyone, this is Robin Misevich. I want to welcome you to the Transformation Cafe. And if you're a new member, we really want to thank you for being a part of our whole international worldwide membership. We really appreciate that. And we're excited tonight because we're going to be starting something brand new on the show. We've been going for about 4.5 years. And it's kind of interesting that all of a sudden we've just been inspired to do this. And I think part of the reason we are is actually because of the book that we're going to be covering. We're starting off our cafe book club. And we're going to be covering Big Magic with Elizabeth Gilbert, the author of Eat, Pray, Love. And I have my lovely sister, Amy, who I love to call her. She's a life coach and also a change agent for good. That's totally sure. So, Miss Amy, how are you tonight?
I'm really good. I'm very excited about us kicking off this book club and talking about Big Magic.
Me too. I think it's just really, really awesome. So if you go back to our last episode, which was TC 274, we were kind of doing a little bit of a pre-setup for this book club and talking about Big Magic in ways of just, if I were going to be coming in as somebody interested in looking at the book, what would be something to thinking about and being inspired about. And a real goal for this whole endeavor with these episodes is just really to take the main themes of the different sections of this book and really expanding on them in ways that we're hoping we can't even imagine right now, which I think for us, we've already been seeing that. With last episode, I was sharing about how I've been inspired to want to start a new women's network since I have my business Flowers for You in Riverside, California, and just bringing that to the Inland Empire. I'm excited about that. And I'm just noticing different ideas and stuff like that I'm just taking the time to really develop. So, Amy, has there anything since we kind of took a break and we've changed our time slot now to 8 o'clock. So we're hoping that everybody on the East Coast can be joining us. And just to remind everybody, we do have a forum where you can actually go to transformation-cafe.com. And there's a place there where you can go ahead and join into the forum area. And we really appreciate and really encourage you to be, letting us know your comments, your thoughts about the book, and the way that's really helping you to open yourself up into ways that you can't even imagine. And I know Amy really wants everyone to be really looking at how can you be getting supported with those things that you just have been feeling nudged over the years to do and know that, you might as well go for it. This is the time to be doing that. So anything that came up for you, Amy, this week while we were taking a little break?
Yeah, part of it I want to say the intention for me is the same with a little bit of difference, is that I love Elizabeth Gilbert and this book, although I'm taking it slow, which is unusual for me, and I'm staying even with our book club, so I'm not getting too far ahead. So it's actually looking at this book and this material, and it's also learning how to be part of a group that takes a book or a process and works through it together. So our intention is that you benefit from this book, that you uncover some hidden treasure for yourself, and you also learn how important it is to find a book or a process to work through with at least another person or a group of people, and knowing that you can do it in person, on the phone, on all different Skyping, all different kinds of ways. So we get a lot of intentions here that we're hoping to magically uncover as we go.
Yeah, magically uncover is right. Really, because just looking at the level of technology that we have nowadays, and gosh, there's just more and more every day. I was at my business networking meeting this morning and they were talking about Facebook and just how many new buttons and options that Facebook is really putting into play probably in the next 3 to 6 months. It's just amazing. Just that much more being able to be engaged, being able to just have that much of a deeper and more spontaneous conversations with people. It's just, you think, gosh, what more could they do? And then we do more. So it just shows that level of being inspired. And that's actually something I really wanted to talk about tonight with part of what the first section of the book talks about courage and really getting into looking at the treasures and the different options that you have of just really having a really creative life and what that looks like.
Creative living defined. So this, I believe, is the central question upon which all creative living hinges. Do you have the courage to bring forth the treasures that are hidden within you?
And I know for me personally, one of the things I loved about the first section was there were a couple different things that really were ahas for me. One in particular was Elizabeth does a really great job of listing just a whole bunch of different things that will stop us. Whether it's being afraid of rejection and it being criticized, thinking that what we want to create wouldn't have in a market with our creativity. And I think one of the one things that I really love is that whole idea, which is it just seems to be a continual thing when it comes to stopping creativity. Somebody's already done it. Why should I do it? And she gives just this really wonderful message that you're authentic. You're the only one who can do it the way that you do it. So why wouldn't you do it? If you're feeling that inspired and that curious about what's going to happen if you did pursue that there's something there for you, or you wouldn't even be having those nudges within yourself to be pursuing it in any way. So those are just things that I really appreciated about that. Was there something within that first section, Amy, that really spoke to you that kind of surprised you?
Well, I want to hold with you for a minute here on where you were at. So that's on page 13 that you,
it actually starts on, page 13, it goes to 15.
Well, she says here, let me list for you some of the many ways in which you might be afraid to live your creative life. And, there's so many of them. You're afraid you have no talent. You're afraid your dreams are embarrassing, and on and on and on. And then she says here at the end, it's 3 pages of list. And she says, listen, I don't have all day here, so I'm going to keep listing fears. I'm not going to keep listing fears. It's a bottomless pit and a depressing one. I'm wrap it up by summarizing it this way: scary, scary, scary. And so I want to honor that, it's part of the process, and you're starting a creative process. It's scary.
Let me list for you some of the many ways in which you might be afraid to live a more creative life. You're afraid you have no talent. You're afraid you'll be rejected or criticized or ridiculed or misunderstood or, worst of all, ignored. You're afraid there's no market for your creativity and therefore no point in pursuing it. You're afraid somebody else already did it better. You're afraid everybody else already did it better. You're afraid somebody will steal your ideas, so it's safer to keep them hidden forever in the dark.
Something that I do for myself, we were talking about preparing to get ready to do any new process, Robin. So one of the things that I do is, what are my yeah buts? And they're fears, you could say, the reasons that kept me from doing something. So what would be my yeah buts for doing this book? Well, I've never done a book club on a podcast before. I don't know how to do it. I'm going to be very vulnerable and share what's real for me. That's kind of scary. I don't know who's going to listen to this. I don't know how you and I are going to work together doing this, because we come from a very different place in terms of how we work with material and work with people. So just letting those out, not having to fix them. Just saying, that's my yeah, but I'm going to put it down. I'm just going to have it right there and acknowledge that it exists. I don't have to fix it. I don't have to change it. I just let it be there.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really wonderful in taking all that and then taking the road trip, which is near the end of that last section. And she does this wonderful speech to her fear and just basically says, I know you're going to be here along with the ride, and that's okay, but you're not going to be allowed to play with the radio or the temperature, or most importantly, you're not going to have a vote and you're not going to be able to drive. So, Amy read that whole speech, that whole, I guess it's a speech, speech to,
yes, when you say it, or it's it's a stake in the ground, or you can look at it lots of different ways. But I really like how she says that she makes a declaration like that before she starts a project. And I think that just acknowledges, okay, you're there and you're part of this.
Yeah.
So, and I think the road trip is a great thing to read out loud, and maybe, make a copy of it and have it where you sit, and do your work. It may be something that you copy for yourself, or you record for yourself and see, and maybe listen to it when you start feeling like, oh no, I'm not going to do this. So kind of look at the chapters. So how I traditionally like to do a book club is that we start with however many people, whether it's physically in a room or on the phone or on Skype, and we kind of walk through the chapter, and everybody kind of, as we go through, anybody have any things that come to them. So starting at the beginning here, she talks about this fellow Jack Gilbert, starting about page 6, where there's a person that she had never met, and who was this amazing poet, and he never wanted fame. And how she discovered him was that she had taken over his office. He had taught a class, and then he wasn't teaching anymore, and then she took over that class. And then through the students and through reading his material, she realized what an amazing person that he was. And in talking to her students here on page 6, she said the students, most of all, he asked his students to be brave.
Most of all, though, he asked his students to be brave. Without bravery, he instructed, they would never be able to realize the vaulting scope of their own capacities. Without bravery, they would never know the world as richly as it longs to be known. Without bravery, their lives would remain small, far smaller than they probably wanted their lives to be.
Mm-hmm. So somebody she had never met, and she never tried to hunt him down because I think she was afraid of what the reality would be different than what she wanted him to be. So anything, for you with the whole Jack thing, or up to page 6 there?
Yeah, I love that. I love how, just like she's saying, to me it was big magic that, here he had the same last name. They weren't related. They're both writers, both have a passion for a way they want to do things. And they wind up being at a university in Tennessee and teaching in the same class. And she's literally in the same office that he was when he was there.
Exactly.
I mean, how in the universe, how could something like that line up so magnificently?
Basically impossible, but when it's God timing, it's 100% every time.
Yeah, exactly. And I just loved that. And then for him to, at some points in his life, she goes into a little bit of detail about that at the beginning, how, he really isolated himself, and he'd gone to Greece at some points, and he was living in like a shepherd's hut and just doing odd jobs to be able to be in a place where he could really write and be in a place where he could face those things that needed and wanted to come out of him. And every time he came back out in the world, everybody had so many accolades for him about how he was with the truth and being authentic and who he was and all that. That just shows that depth of really being able to sit and be quiet with yourself and what can really come through you when you allow yourself to really be that listener. I think it was just amazing that, and then for her to really value him.
And then I think several points from that you can be motivated and inspired by somebody you've never met, by things that have been left behind, interviews, books, the people that they left a legacy in and what they've learned. So I think that's some of the clues we want to be paying attention to. And that, we can be changed by fame. We can be changed by, maybe making money or looking for an award. Not that you can't make money with your gifts and talents. I'm all about that. I think it's really that we are given our gifts and talents to be able to make a living. Another point I love on page 9, Robin, where she talks about Susan. And she talks about one of the coolest, she says the coolest examples of creative living that she'd ever seen was her friend Susan, who took up figure skating when she was 40 years old. Well, she said, to be precise, she had competed in figure skating as a child and loved it, but she ended up giving it up because, she didn't have enough talent, to be a champion. But then it was something that fed her soul and made her happy. And so she started taking lessons, and she got skates, and she found a rink and hired a coach, and she ignored the voice within that told her she was being self-indulgent and preposterous for doing this crazy thing. How exciting is that? And it came down to, it wasn't about her doing it for money. It wasn't about her doing it for some kind of reward, but doing it because it gave her joy and it gave her that creative expression.
Yeah, it gave her the creative flow. She talks about that and just being in this beautiful sense of yourself that is beyond words. And we all know what that feels like. We all know what that feels like when we're it's like being in a zone, it's that zone. Yeah, it's the zone.
I don't know that, I don't know that everybody does. And so part of what my dream is for people who join us that if they've never had it, that they get to experience it. And even if they haven't, maybe they get to experience it in new ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just being able to step a little bit further than you think you can, you know?
Yeah. Just differently, not even further. So I think that's
right.
the point. It isn't necessarily further. It isn't any marker that you have to hit. So again, on page 11, I really love this. So she talks about, so this woman is, 3 mornings a week. She gets up before dawn and she skates for 3 hours and then she goes to work. And here she says, and it's the last paragraph on page 11 says, please note that my friend did not quit her job. She did not sell her home. She did not sever all her relationships and move to Toronto to study 70 hours a week with an exacting Olympic-level skill skating. Oh, no, this story does not end with her winning any championship medals. It doesn't have to. In fact, this story doesn't have to end at all because Susan still figure skates several mornings a week simply because it brings her joy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's creative living in just a nutshell of whatever's, I want to say float your boat. Float your boat has you coming from this level of feeling light and buoyant. It's a perfect metaphor for being able to be in this place of, what gives you curiosity, and what help. Think about that. What just getting up early and you're going to be doing that before you go to work, and then just feeling the exhilaration of that when you're out there and really you're just saying yes and you're free to life. One of the things that I loved that I was noticing from the book is Elizabeth says, I dare you to be inspired, to be brave, to be free, and to be curious. And I think that's a wonderful way of being able to be looking at it. I want to go back to the road trip for a second, because I think that would be a wonderful thing that you could actually, if you have the ability on your cell phone and stuff, and lots of them, we have recorders where we can just record it, and how powerful that would be to be able to read it to yourself and then being able to listen to that, hearing it in your own voice, to be able to read that and you're addressing your own fear from that perspective and have it your voice to yourself and to your fear. I think that would be a real powerful exercise for yourself to just, treat yourself to that. Because like you're saying, those days when you just why am I doing this? Or why do I even think I could move something like that? And then reminding yourself of that you decided to go down this road and to see where it's going to go. So that's very, very exciting. So, anything on a personal level of things that came up for you this week that, just like with me with my networking group?
I have been getting a lot of things coming to me about working with veterans. I met with somebody that is creating a really amazing program. We had a 2-hour lunch yesterday. And
Great.
she wants to be the focal point for veteran hiring, networking, and career events. And that totally came out of the blue. It's somebody that I had met she used to work for PBS, and she left there and created her own company a couple months ago, and I noticed she'd moved, and so I just got the idea, I'll give her a call, and I did, and she said, let's meet for lunch, and 2 hours later, we never really had spent time together. I had done some presentations at the PBS veteran networking events and knew her through that, but we never really sat down and talked, and I really think I found a new friend, and I don't know. I told her I really believe in what she's doing, and I'm open to where that's going to lead, so I think that's part of it too. It may part of and last week I did a workshop at a active senior center, and I did finding passion at any age, and it was so exciting, and really the precursor for setting up for us to do this book club. And there were several people there. Most of them were women. There was one man there, and they talked about at this point in their lives what were they passionate about? And there was one woman that came up to me after, and she said, I'm a writer. I'm like, great, what do you do? What are you writing? I'm not writing anything. And I'm like, would you be willing to just start writing and not worry about anybody reading it? What if you just wrote because you wanted to and see where it leads you? And she's committed to doing that. So I hope she does. But it'll be up to her. And part of for me was, okay, what areas do I want to challenge myself? And I know something that's come up for me in terms of being creative is kind of frightening. So I did that talk. And then the woman who had brought me in to do it said next week, which tomorrow will be actually tomorrow, that she is speaking at a stroke support group for people who have had strokes at a local hospital. And she said, I'm only going to talk for about 10 minutes. Would you be willing to come in and talk about, finding passion for the rest of the hour? And I said, I feel like I get yes. So I said yes. And then I said, but I feel like that's not the topic. And may I be with it and do whatever comes to me? And she's worked with me for a long time, and she trusts me. And she said, yes, you're on. Whatever you get to do, go ahead and do that. So that was exciting and frightening at the same time. So I've been being with it and being a creative process. And yesterday morning, I got really strongly that I'm to talk to them about using guided imagery for whatever's next for them. So I'm going to be talking about what is guided imagery and how they can use it in their healing and their real life and going forward. And I'm a little nervous about it, but I'm really clear that's what I'm going to do. So this is about what is my fear with this. Part of it for me is is I speak too fast, and they may struggle because of where they're at with their stroke. But I'm going to really focus on being present and being there with them, whatever speed is appropriate for the group. And so, I'm a little nervous. I'm prepared as I'm going to be, but I'm going to go for it.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I think that's just so awesome. I know that reminds me of Wayne Dyer. We had done a show about maybe a month ago right after he passed, celebrating him. And I remember that the last these 2 or 3 years that, he had his regular specials and stuff on PBS, he said that, he got to a point when he would be in front of people, unless there was a particular topic or something that he would, be going to a workshop or retreat or whatever about, he would just really open himself up to whatever he was being guided to say. And I really appreciate him about that and just allowing himself to just, be the messenger of what wanted to come through him. And we know how profound that got to be when he was really allowing himself to be from that place. I wanted to go back and, we talked about Jack Gilbert a little bit, and Elizabeth did such a great job talking about him. At one point, Jack, she got so curious about him, she started looking to see if there were students that had his class, before he had left, and when she took over the classes that she was teaching now that he had taught. And she found a young, a student there that had his class, and she shared that he had said, do you have the courage? Do you have the courage to bring forth the work?
This young woman recounted to me that one afternoon, after his poetry class, Jack had taken her aside. He complimented her work, then asked her what she wanted to do with her life. Hesitantly, she admitted that perhaps she wanted to be a writer. He smiled at the girl with infinite compassion and asked, do you have the courage? Do you have the courage to bring forth this work? The treasures that are hidden inside you are hoping you will say yes.
And I love that because there's a saying out there that the universe is always saying yes. So, it's like be careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about fear and how, fear is not a bad thing. And I love here on page 22, the third paragraph, she says, if your goal in life is to become fearless, then I believe you're already on the wrong path. Because the only truly fearless people I've ever met were straight up psychopaths, and with a few exceptionally reckless 3-year-olds. And those aren't really good role models for anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's very good. That made me, it was interesting because I got guided to listen to, Pema Chodron again. And she has this wonderful lecture that she had done that I got through Sounds True. Gosh, a long time ago. I think it's been about 6 or 7 years ago that I got it. And she was talking, it's all about, working and dancing with fear. And a couple things that she had said, and I thought that was interesting since we're talking about big magic, was that one of the practices, and a lot of this comes from the Buddhist traditions, but to smile at fear and to be in the moment with the fear and dance with it in a way that you're not dancing to really do anything with it, but being in the moment and feeling what you're feeling and knowing that this too shall pass. but it's being able to look, face it.
Or it may not, Robin. That fear may not pass. So you just have to say, all right, you're on the road trip, but you don't get a vote.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't turn on the radio, and don't adjust my temperature.
Well, and I want to make a comment here, Robin. So as, talking about modern technology, so our baby sister, Judy, texted both of us, and she is listening. And so she has the phone number. If she wants to call in, that would be fabulous. She's loving what we're doing. Thank you, Judy.
Let me put the number out there. It's 646-727-3206. If you want to go ahead and call in, and we'll put you straight into the chat room, and
dial 1.
You can join in the conversation. Yeah, just go ahead and hit 1, and that'll put you into the queue.
So several years ago, as a matter of fact, Judy and I did the Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren together. And it was supposed to do it in 40 days. And she and I did it in 40 weeks because, we wanted to take our time, and, we wanted to be able to have a lot of breakfast. So that's how we, when we actually physically met. And so it was really nice. Again, it's always good to have a process and then share it with somebody. And with that way, you have something to focus on. And it's not just you come together and complain, or you come together and go, you're all messed up. This is how I'm going to help fix you. But something that you're working on. And that way you're doing your inner work, and you're working with another at the same time. So you're helping yourself, you're helping them, but you're also deepening your relationship with another person, other people, when you do something that's intimate like this and really look at who I am and where I'm at.
Well, and it, just like Elizabeth had these just connections with Jack Gilbert, there's those connections that, I want to see when two or more gather in my name, when two or more are gathering with an intention of having something moving bigger than they are, how marvelous and magnetic things can happen, and just the synergies of different things that happen with people when you really, it's that whole thing of being able to be in a place where you can say yes to different stuff. So Miss Judy is joining us. So hey, Miss Judy, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you two doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for jumping into the call. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. You girls are doing some good work here tonight.
Yeah. So are you familiar with Elizabeth?
No, I'm not, but I'm familiar with the two of you, and I like what you do. So I thought I'm gonna tune right in here and find out what my big sisters are up to.
And she, this book is all about it's called Creative Living Beyond Fear. And so acknowledging that fear exists, but going after your hidden treasure. And I know that's what you do with Youth at Risk all day long. But I'd like to
Absolutely.
say, what is your next risk, in terms of your growth, Judy?
Well, I've had a really interesting time for the last 20 years having this organization where we've led youth to claim their purpose. And so it's quite interesting, I think, what happens with your life is you have this vision for what you want to create, and then all of a sudden you see that you're attracting the right people to create what you thought you wanted to do. And so now I'm finding myself in a spot where I have to help empower my organization to receive maybe even new leadership to take it far past what my vision was for it. And so I'm just really opening my arms and saying, okay, whatever this is going to look like, this is still my baby, but I have to increase my baby's ability to deliver more. And so It's interesting to be covering something and hovering over something for so long, but now to say, I got to get on the back seat of the bus now, work my way to the back seat of the bus, and allow others to come in and have some leadership.
That's very courageous. Very courageous.
It is very courageous.
Scary. I'm very terrified, but that's okay. Life is about bigger things than me. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Curious to see what's going to be at the back of the bus, huh?
I know. I love the back of the bus because some crazy crap goes on in the back of the bus.
But they're all the fun stuff, for sure.
That's what
we're right at the end there, Robin. You want to do a pretty bow on this?
Yeah, we're going to do a pretty bow. Well, I really want to thank Judy for joining us, and I hope she gets big magic and starts being a part of the conversation with us. Next week, we're going to be starting to launch into the whole second section, which is going to be about enchantment. But really, it's about the power of our ideas. And like Amy was saying it, just really coming from a place of, we really want to be here to people, to be encouraging people to go for it and what that would look like for people. So we look forward to having anybody coming in and joining us into the forum room with different questions that you have. and keeping the conversation going after a half an hour show. We know that there's just not enough time to be able to do that. So I want to thank my lovely sisters for joining me tonight, and we will see you next time at the Transformation Cafe.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the Transformation Cafe podcast. To learn more, visit